All right, short video. Um, this is a 1964 Dynamic 88 Oldsmobile, four-door sedan, optioned with a 394 cubic inch high compression two-barrel V8, power steering, power brakes that have been converted to dual circuit. Is running a 2GC, good carburetor that was run for a long time. One of my personal favorite, if not my personal favorite carburetor. This is my friend's car. It's here. We're doing a little body work to it, cutting out some rust and fixing it. It has 308 rear gears out of a 10-bolt rear end, but not the corporate 10-bolt. Everybody knows and loves that kind of 10-bolt. I forget how big it is, but he put a new frame in it because the old frame snapped in half while we were trailering just the frame. So the frame's been replaced and POR 15'd. As you can see, he's got a new fuel tank. We're going to buy a parts car for it tomorrow. A clean parts car that eventually will pull the quarters off of it and put it on this car. But this is just a temporary, drive it for a few years body fix. We're not even fixing it or rockers or anything like that. And it's got rust in the same spots on the other side. New frame, new lines. The power steering isn't hooked up because he's pretty sure it leaks. But I'd like to hook it up, see where it leaks from, and then we can figure it out. It needs a new trunk lid coming with the parts car. This trim in the back is getting replaced. The parts car needs all this fixed with panels from the parts car. We can all these are super clean on the parts car. And he said I can have whatever parts I'd like off the parts car. So I'm thinking he's gonna give me the grill off of this car. He's gonna take the grill off the parts car, and then I'll hang it on the wall and light it up. So that'll be cool. And new shocks, but used springs, and it does sag on the passenger side. So he's gonna put the springs in from the parts car. The parts car is actually super rare. Unfortunately, it's a red car with a red interior. Unfortunately, the interior is awful on the parts car. You'll see the parts car when we go and pick it up. But his interior is very good. It's a little torn on the back. The package tray is bad. Some cracks in the dash. But for this whole car, he paid $200 for it initially. Traded an engine that he got for $100 and $200 cash. And he got this car. And it's not awful. Like, the panels are really straight, not beat up. It needed a frame, which he paid $500 for, and the motor needed to be rebuilt. I think he put like $3,000 into the motor. So, and then all the other ends, he's probably in it for just under $4,500, and it runs and drives as it is. As it needs some other leaks fixed. And we're going to fix this rust and do some blending and all that, just temporary paint work. Well, for the next, 2 years. Make it look good from 30 feet. And then he'll have a good driver for under $6,000. Like a really good driver with minimal problems. Like, besides the only problems that'll be are body. The transmission shifts. Great. But back to the parts car, it's really rare because it's not only is it red interior, which is a really uncommon color. A lot of the full-size Oldsmobiles in the mid-60s were blue. I have 2 blue ones. He has 1 blue one. I see a lot of blue ones everywhere. But red is very uncommon. But it is a 3 on the tree. The parts car is, which less than 1% of the 64 Oldsmobile full-sized cars came with. In fact, my friend who owns this car was telling me that of the people on the Classic Olds forum, they only know of 4 people who have factory 3 on the tree cars on the road. So that's really cool. The interior, everything works on this car. The door panels are a little rough on the bottom. They're all about that condition. The doors are a little rough on the bottom, but not the worst. The carpet's pretty decent. He wants a really good driver, and this will be a good driver. It'll be a little thirsty on the gas because it's a second-gen rocket, but excuse me, I had to sneeze. Be a little thirsty on the gas because it is a second-gen big block, and it's a high compression. I mean, and it's only a 2-barrel, sadly, so he's got to put premium in it, and he's not making full potential power. Oh, I had to sneeze again. Apologize. But it'll be a good car. Nonetheless, a good weekend cruiser, and he'll be pushing, $3,000 at 70 miles an hour. Premium's gonna suck, but what you gonna do? He built the motor for factory specs. He's running just below 10 1/4 compression because his head gaskets are a little thicker, so he's probably closer to 10. But he's gonna have to run premium, which was fine. Put some heavy springs in the distributor and give it enough pep off the line, and it won't ping really that bad. But the stainless on this car is in good shape. The interior is in good shape. I think the ashtray is probably one of my favorite things on this interior, but this dash is just excellent. Just a fantastic dashboard. He has a new windshield for it from a parts vehicle, but now he's got another one, so we'll see what he does. The other parts car has some optional trim that he's going to add. It's the trim that goes over the wheel arch, along the rocker, up over the wheel arch, and then it ends. It doesn't continue onto the quarter, which was a little weird for me because all the other trim on this car goes the whole length, and all the other trim they sort of flip-flopped it from 66 to 64, because on the my 66 Delta, it has both sets of trim, the rocker and the mid-door trim, but the mid-door trim only comes out to about here and out to about there, whereas the rocker trim goes the whole length of the car. Whereas on this one, the rocker trim only goes up to about there and up to about there, and then the mid-door trim goes all the way the length of the car. That's just an interesting thing. Another cool thing about this car that I've never driven a car like it, so I'm looking forward to driving it, is it's a odd shift pattern. It's the 3-speed Rotomatic transmission, which has reverse all the way in the bottom of the shift pattern, which is quite interesting. I'd like to go and parallel park this car at some point, so I think it'd be cool. His steering wheel's a little cracked. At some point, if he wants, I can fix that. I haven't fixed the steering wheel yet, but I have a pretty good idea on how I would do it. And this would be an easy one to do since there's no detail in it. It's just one color. So that would be pretty nice. It's got the chrome pedals, which were optional. It has the optional chrome trim on the outside by the fuel filler too. This was an optional piece. So it's not loaded by any means, but it's got a slightly nicer engine. It's got optional trim. It's a sharp looking car. It has nice door panels. I really like the way these door panels look. They are pretty sharp looking with the textured ribbed fabric. The seats are nice. He's just got a little bit of the trim on the seat tearing out back here, but nothing too bad. On the trim right there is a little worn, but the headliner is in excellent shape. The sun visors could be better, could be worse. Nothing to complain about. Not bad at all. And the car is very comfortable too. It doesn't have a clock, but he will be adding a clock. I have a clock. He has a clock for me. He just has to pick it up, and then I'll rebuild it. I don't know if it has auto-canceling wipers or auto-canceling turn signals. I'm pretty sure it does. It doesn't have the dash light underneath. It does not have a glove box light. There's where it would go, right there and there. He doesn't smoke. These were in the car when he got it. And it's just everything about this car. This is like quintessential 60s in my mind. Some people think, you get the more luxurious car and it's quintessential 60s. I think the middle of the road cars are quintessential 60s because not everybody had the money for Cadillac or Lincoln, but it was a time of wealth in America. So people had more money than maybe they would have otherwise. So you bought a nicer car like a Buick or an Olds or a Mercury or a Plymouth or something like that. And this is a very 60s design. Square, it flows. It's not overpowering with the details. It's not like tons of different types of colors and a bunch of shiny stuff and wood and just an overload, sensory overload. It's not just an overload. It's not showy. It's kind of reserved, but it's also stylish. I really like this. The chrome stripe across the silver stripe. Just the way everything feels. It's almost 60 years old and it just feels quality. And it's just it's one of my favorite features in an Oldsmobile is this ashtray door. It's just fantastic. Like my 66 Delta, it's all right. It pulls out. The slides get a little sticky. And then you move it, you're moving all the ash, and the ash will blow around a little bit. But they stay stationary. You just push that out of the way, and it's just, it's fantastic. And it lights up here and here. And then the glove box too, it's just solid. It's metal. You bump your knee on that, it's gonna hurt. The only soft part of the dash is this. But this is it's just a solid metal dash. It's really, really a nice car. Really nice 60s car. Solidly built. And just excellent. Just excellent. One of the other big rough spots on the car is right there along the back. But we'll be getting a panel. The only problem with the parts car is taking it apart is going to suck because we got to peel it off in layers. And you got to be careful. So it'll take some doing. But they don't make panels for it. So in my opinion, the best option is to not patch panels, but to put on whole new fresh panels. And while these aren't fresh, you can pull them off, recoat them, respray them, and then put them on the car, and you can get the rust proofing much more thorough than if you were to just patch. And get rid of the leaded joints. Leaded joints are fine, but if they do that, they crack. And there's just better products than lead out there, in my opinion. But nothing wrong with leading panels. I mean, if it looks that bad and it's almost 60 years old, lead may be better than the products that are out there. But who knows? Do whatever you want. He's got a nice new shiny bumper off the parts car. It's really hard to find rust-free bumpers for these, so he's got one coming. His front bumper is really good, and that front end is just, again, quintessential 60s. And the back end of the car actually gets wider. If you follow down, you can see once you hit the passenger door, it just gets a little wider. And this part gets a little wider. And then more trim starts, and it's just, the more I look at this car, the more I prefer it to 66. But then I'll get my 66 here, and it'll just be, oh my goodness, and it'll be my favorite again, especially with that 7-liter V8, that 425 with the forged crank, high compression, and the Rochester Quadrajet. And the Turbo 400, much better than the Rotomatic, much stronger, and the switch pitch, and same gear ratio as this car, 308. It'll just be I'll fall in love with that car all over again. But just because this is here, I'm falling in love with it, because it's just excellent. It's just a dynamic experience. It's just a good car all around. Itty bitty radiator for such a big engine. You better keep her trucking if you don't want to overheat. And it's just much more old car. You know, I think the 66 looks much newer, much more modern than the 64s do. Not that that's good or bad. It just is. It has a very odd dash with the way it's designed. The 66 does compared to this. This is very traditional. This is much more, I think, a traditionally styled car, and Oldsmobile went out on a limb with the 66s and the 65s, and they only lasted for 2 years, which is about how long anything lasted back then. They were changing designs all the time, but then they sort of stuck with the round gauges, because in 65 they went to the round gauges over the rectangular gauges, and then eventually when the 70s came, they went back to rectangular gauges. It's just interesting. Yeah, this is the car. We're gonna do a little body work on it. We're going to get the parts car tomorrow, and yeah, it'll be nice. It'll be nice to get this thing out of here. And there might be a I don't know. This might stick around for a little bit here. This might go away sooner, but I'd like to get the rust fixed as soon as possible. And once he gets the fuel tank, he'll be putting that in, and then we can hook up the fuel line, because right now there's a pinhole in this fuel tank. So we got to run it out of a can. And another thing I need the trim that he's going to put on from the parts car, so that I can fit the trim before I get my patch panel fully welded in. And yeah, we're not doing inner rockers or anything like that right now. Oh, he just wants it to look good from a distance, and that's what we're gonna do. That is what we're gonna do. So yeah, that's about it for the 64. That's where we're at. That's what we're gonna do. He's got the same tires that I have on the Cutlass, the Porcelli 787s, but he's got the 205s. He went with the 205s because he got a good deal on them. Even though they're even smaller, they're too small for the Cutlass, and they're way too small for what would have come on this car. Oh, but another thing is the original spare for the car, the original dual stripe. Oh gosh, bias ply spare. So another Oldsmobile with an original spare tire, which is kind of cool. That's about it. That's really about it for the car. It's a good car. It'll be a good going to town rig, a good cruiser, and it runs good. It runs very well. Just a little choke issue. We got to put an O-ring on the piston for the vacuum choke pull off, because it's not a diaphragm, it's a piston in there. It's a little worn out, but it's not bad. And he did spray bomb the inside. There's way less shiny bits than there should be, but I think it kind of works, because it really highlights the engine with the silver valve covers. And when the air cleaner's on there, it's just going to be fantastic. So we will we'll update you guys as we make progress on the car.